The airlock hissed open with a sound that was far too human for the alien landscape beyond it. Commander Aline Reyes stepped onto the crimson soil of Arkaia-9, her boots sinking half an inch into a surface analyst once swore would vaporize organic matter within minutes. They had been wrong about a lot of things. Behind her, Dr. Kian Allery adjusted the straps on his biosensor pack, eyes flicking between Reyes and the horizon. The rest of the crew disembarked silently, each consumed by the gravity of their first steps. Not just the physical gravity, 0.83 g manageable, but the crushing weight of being the first humans to land on a planet that was supposed to kill them. The briefing back on Earth had been full of phrases like probabilistic extinction, unpredictable biospheric volatility, and maximum deployment duration. 14 days. No one truly expected the crew to return. In a sense, they hadn't signed up to live. They'd volunteered to reveal the limits of human life. Yet Reyes had watched the atmospheric data twist and crack like ice under pressure in the last 6 months. The planet wasn't just tolerable. It was alive in ways no one had expected. Breathable air in certain altitudes, ambient radiation levels that cycled rhythmically, as though filtered by something unseen. It wasn't safe, but it wasn't suicidal either. Kian knelt beside a dark, angular rock. "This isn't basalt," he muttered. "There's organic patterning on it. Symmetry. It's almost manufactured." Reyes didn't answer immediately. She was scanning the horizon, where jagged ridges folded into violet shadows. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a thrill of uncertainty. There were no cities, no signs of civilization, but the land didn't feel untouched. It felt waiting. Their first shelter was a joke. 3 collapsible modules wrapped in reinforced mylar, anchored against windstorms no one could predict. The nights dropped to sub-zero, and something howled across the plains, not mechanical, not quite animal. Most of the crew didn't sleep. On the 6th night, Ensign Marlevine woke screaming, her visor fogged and hands trembling. "Something walked through me," she kept repeating. "Not around, through." By morning, she was fine. Scans showed no anomalies. No one else had seen anything. But Reyes noticed the crew's habits shifting subtly. Sleeping closer, checking helmets twice, whispering more than speaking. Kian took it hardest. As the mission's xenobiologist, he'd expected alien threats to be cellular, microbial, invaders from within, not something incorporeal, unfathomable, walking the boundaries of reason. "If it wanted us dead," he muttered during a log entry, "we'd already be." Despite the unease, the planet rewarded their persistence. On day 11, Reyes found the first of the glass trees. Thin, transparent structures that refracted sunlight into a kaleidoscope of color. Their roots plunged deep into the earth, pulling moisture from sources the scanners couldn't trace. Kian clipped a shard from one and ran tests for days. It generated power. Not much, but enough to hint at potential. That discovery changed everything. Engineering officer Jean Patel rigged a crude battery using the tree's shard and a magnesium filament from their rover. The module lights glowed for 6 hours straight. No solar, no wind. The next day, they installed 3 more shards around the camp. For the first time since landing, they slept without the dread of darkness. But as the light bloomed, so did the planet's complexity. Fauna appeared, twitching silhouettes at dusk, whispers of movement in thermal scans. They were never seen directly, always just out of focus, as though the planet itself decided what to reveal. Then came the storm. It wasn't like the simulations. The air thickened with static, humming against their suits. A spiral of clouds tore across the sky, flashing with bioluminescent veins. Communication cut out. The shards pulsed erratically, their glow rising and falling like panic breath. They huddled inside the shelter, powerless to stop what came next. A beam, wide, silent, pure, descended from the storm's heart. It struck the hill 50 meters from their camp, dissolving the rock into fine powder. When it cleared, there was a crater, yes, but also something else. A structure. It shimmered like the glass trees, but taller, 3 meters high, leaning inward at impossible angles. Smooth, alien geometry. The crew stared in silence. It hadn't been there before, and it hadn't fallen. It had formed. Not natural, Kian whispered. Not weather. This planet isn't reacting, it's responding. For the first time, Reyes felt fear she couldn't control. Not of death, but of being understood by something they didn't understand. They approached the structure cautiously. No heat signature, no EM field, but the surface was warm to the touch, like skin left under sunlight. Reyes placed her hand against it. It thrummed, not a vibration, a rhythm, a message. Kian ran every frequency test he could imagine, but the structure ignored them all until Veen, eyes wide and glassy, simply said, "It's listening." That night, no one slept, but the next morning, the air felt easier in their lungs. The gravity felt lighter, and the glass trees, they'd grown a little taller. Patel laughed as he tested the power output again. 20% increase. No explanation. It's like the planet's trying to help us. Or train us. Reyes didn't voice the thought. But she began to log patterns in her private journal. Patterns of cause and effect, reward and reaction. The planet wasn't hostile. It wasn't neutral, either. It was watching. When Earth finally reestablished contact after the storm, they demanded immediate updates, extraction plans, medical data. Reyes responded with a single sentence. "We are not leaving yet." Earth protested. Politicians threatened. But they didn't understand what Reyes had begun to feel, not in her brain, but in her bones. Arkaia-9 had once been called a death sentence. Now it felt like a test, and she wasn't done passing it. Jean Patel wiped the sweat from her brow, even though the inside of her suit remained controlled 21 degrees Celsius. The sweat wasn't heat, it was pressure, the pressure of getting something, anything, to work longer than a few hours without failing. Power, oxygen, data, all fragile threads in a web that could unravel at the smallest twitch. She tapped the panel of the third solar tether, watching the readout flicker. "Still not holding charge overnight," she muttered. Kian was crouched nearby, gently prodding the soft moss that had begun to sprout near the base of a glass tree. "It's not just photosynthesis," he said absently. "This stuff's interacting with the soil microbes, boosting them, creating feedback loops." Rhea stood at the edge of their makeshift perimeter, her gaze sweeping across the plain. The original plan was to stay for 2 weeks. They were on day 39. Headquarters had stopped sending demands to return. They had switched to questions instead. The crew was now the subject of 100 think tank debates and late-night news specials back home. But none of that mattered here. What mattered was the planet didn't want to kill them. It wanted them to stay. And that, more than any environmental hazard, unsettled Reyes. Veen approached, her movement slow but assured. The tremors and hallucinations that had once plagued her were gone. The night after the structure appeared, she had walked outside without a helmet for 10 seconds. The air had tasted like metal and ozone. She hadn't coughed. They all saw it as a turning point. So they built. It started small, patching the shelter walls with local resin that hardened in minutes. Then expanding, dome frames reinforced with melted glass tree polymers. Kian extracted compound from the local moss that formed an antibacterial sealant. Jin discovered that the sand, when superheated, produced a semi-translucent brick strong enough to withstand windstorms. They named the first real building Haven 1. It wasn't pretty, but it had a pressurized core, a sustainable air mix, and insulation made from native plant fibers. It stood like a declaration against everything Earth had predicted. Reyes watched her team with a growing sense of awe. They were changing, subtly but unmistakably. Kian no longer carried an atmospheric scanner everywhere. He could feel shifts in pressure before the equipment registered them. Veen's insomnia had evaporated, replaced by a deep, dreamless sleep that left her sharper, faster. Even Jun, once bound to strict schedules, now moved with an intuitive rhythm that matched the planet's pulses. "Are we still human?" Kian asked one night, as they sat under the stars, watching the trees refract moonlight. "Or are we something else?" Reyes didn't answer. She didn't know. The conflict grew not from outside, but within. The more they learned to live here, the less they wanted to leave. But Reyes remembered the mission's mandate. Study, report, return. And Earth was watching. Each transmission back home was a negotiation. For every discovery they shared, they withheld two. Reyes no longer trusted Earth's interpretation of survival. The data would be used for colonization, exploitation. Lessons learned twisted into control. Then came the vote. It began with a simple suggestion from Jeanne. Build a second dome, not for necessity, but for permanence, a gesture of intention. We should decide, she said during the meeting, whether this is a mission or beginning. Veen nodded. We're not surviving anymore. We're living. Kian, to no one's surprise, agreed. He was already imagining schools, gardens, partnerships with the planet itself. Reyes hesitated. The structure on the hill still pulsed nightly, a reminder that they were not alone, or at least not unnoticed. She feared commitment would bring consequences, but she also knew her team. They had grown roots the extraction ship would rip from the soil. They voted. Unanimous. They stayed. Construction accelerated. The second dome included hydroponics fed by processed groundwater. Crops grew fast, unusually so. Tomatoes ripened in under a week. Earth seeds reacted with the planet's biology in strange, fertile ways. Everything was hybridizing, mutating, but not dangerously, efficiently. Still, not always easy. A tremor hit on day 62, cracking one dome wall. Jin sealed it with molten sand within the hour. A predator, something like a featherless quadruped, was spotted near the glass grove. It didn't approach, just watched, as though taking notes. The planet was learning, too. On day 70, Kian stopped breathing for 2 full minutes. He collapsed in the lab, eyes wide, mouth frozen. They thought he was gone, until he sat up, gasping. I wasn't dead, he said. I saw it. The structure. From inside. They scanned him. No neurological damage. But his brain activity had shifted, slightly, like tuning a frequency. He could understand things he hadn't before. Equations made sense. Alien patterns translated into chemistry. He wasn't the only one. By day 75, they were all dreaming the same symbols. Geometric sequences. Maps. None of it made rational sense, but all of it felt real. Reyes began documenting the dreams. The same structure always appeared, surrounded by spirals of light. A voice, not heard but felt, repeated a question none of them could fully translate. Are you ready? One night. Reyes stood alone in the structure's glow, her hand pressed to its side. What do you want from us? She whispered. The answer wasn't words. It was warmth. She understood. The planet didn't want to kill them. It didn't even want to test them. It wanted a partner. So she gave it one. The next message to Earth was short. The planet is viable. We are continuing the mission under autonomous directive. They were no longer just surviving. They were chosen. And what lay ahead would either unite them forever or reveal a cost too great to comprehend. The sound came at dawn, a resonance beneath the earth, like a note held in a deep throat. It shook the floor plate of Haven 1, set drinking flasks trembling on metal tables. It wasn't violent, just undeniable. Something was shifting below them. Reyes was already up, standing barefoot on the sand just outside the perimeter. She felt it before the instruments did. The vibration rippled up through her bones like a summons. She didn't need Kian to tell her this was new. She already knew. Inside the dome, Jin stared at the energy readings, lips pressed into a tight line. Not seismic. It's harmonic. Controlled, like sonar. But it's everywhere. From under us. All directions. Kian was silent, his eyes closed. He was listening again, the way he did when the symbols returned in his sleep. He'd grown quieter in the last week, less eager to explain, more intent on understanding. Something about the dreams had changed him. The others could see it. The look in his eyes wasn't just awareness anymore. It was communion. We triggered it, he said quietly. The structure. The domes. The choice to stay, it was a signal. Reyes exhaled. Not regret. Not fear. Resolution. Outside, a new form rose from the sand. Slow and deliberate. Not grown, not built, but assembled from beneath. A perfect arch. 10 meters tall, composed of the same translucent material as the glass trees. Beneath it, The sand flattened into a smooth surface like obsidian. Veen was the first to approach. She had always felt the planet most deeply, most emotionally. Her steps were measured, reverent. The arch did nothing. No light, no sound. But when she stepped beneath it, the air shimmered. She disappeared. Not a flash, not an explosion. Just absence. Jin screamed. Reyes moved forward instinctively, but Kian stopped her with a hand. "She's not gone," he said, voice calm. "She's moved, pulled somewhere else. We're being invited." It took 5 hours to decide the next step. 5 hours of silence, debate, pacing. The remaining crew members each took turns standing at the edge of the arch, weighing the moment. No command code could dictate this choice. No mission directive could justify it. Reyes volunteered. As she passed beneath the arch, the air grew thick, syrupy. Her vision blurred. Then, without sensation, she was elsewhere. It wasn't another place. Not exactly. The landscape remained, but it was brighter, cleaner. No dust, no wind. The horizon gleamed with crystalline growths like frozen rivers. She could breathe, but the air tasted different, alive. Veen stood nearby, unharmed, smiling. "I feel like I'm dreaming," she said. "But I'm not. This is real." Before them, the structure from the hill had changed. It had unfolded. Petals of translucent matter spread outward, revealing a core of shifting symbols. Spinning slowly in midair, Kian appeared next, his presence anchoring Reyes in the moment. He didn't speak, only stepped forward toward the symbols. They responded to him, spinning faster, then slower, syncing with his heartbeat. Then the message came, not spoken, not written, but understood. "We gave your kind a chance once. You failed." Reyes flinched, her breath catching. The others froze. The symbols continued spinning. "You poisoned what was given. You burned what you did not need. You forgot the agreement." Jin arrived, her voice trembling. This isn't about us, is it?" Kian shook his head. "It's about Earth. Our past. The warnings they left." The symbols shifted again, forming an image, an ancient Earth, fertile, whole. Then came cities, fire, smoke. Species vanished. Ice melted. The same narrative told 1,000 times. But then the vision turned, showing the Arkaia system. Planets cataloged, analyzed, rejected. And finally, this one, the last. "You were not sent to survive. You were sent to prove worth." Reyes spoke, unsure if her voice would be heard. "Then why let us live?" The symbols paused, then resumed. "Because you listened." Kian stepped forward, hands at his sides. "We want to learn. We want to do better." The structure dimmed, then do better. They were pulled back, not violently, but swiftly, as though the planet had finished its sentence. One by one, the crew returned through the arch. Each of them changed, not in body, in purpose. Outside, the rest of the colony stood silent, watching. Reyes looked at them, her people, not astronauts anymore, not scientists or engineers, stewards. "I'm ending the mission," she said into her communicator, transmitting to Earth. Effective immediately, Arkaia-9 is no longer under exploratory jurisdiction. Pause. It is under protection. Earth responded with confusion, then anger. Orders flew in. Sanctions were threatened. Legal lines were drawn. But Reyes had already cut the tether. The arch stood behind her like a spine of light, humming softly. Arkaia-9 had offered them a second chance. Now, they had to prove they deserved it. The mornings no longer began with alarms or artificial lights. Instead, the crew rose with a soft chiming resonance that now echoed from the trees. Each note faint but deliberate, as though Arkaia-9 itself was singing the day into being. No one questioned it anymore. Questions had given way to understanding, and understanding had matured into instinct. Haven 1 had grown. What was once a survival module now resembled a living organism. Vines from local flora weaved through translucent roof panels, filtering sunlight into warm, dapple patterns. The air filtration systems had long been shut off. The atmosphere was not only breathable, it was restorative. Veen no longer wore her oxygen cuff, and the scars on Kian's hand from the crash landing burns had faded without intervention. Still, the message from the arch lingered. You were not sent to survive. You were sent to prove worth. Jeanne had taken those words harder than anyone. She had always relied on data, measurements, engineering, but the planet operated beyond binary logic. Its systems weren't just self-sustaining. They were adaptive, emotional in a way no machine could be. Her work had become less about fixing things and more about translating, interpreting planetary responses, as if they were part of a dialogue. I think the trees know our names, she had whispered once, watching a canopy ripple in rhythm as she walked beneath it. Reyes remained the fulcrum of the colony. Her authority had shifted from command to guidance, and though Earth still sent transmissions, she no longer responded. She read them, listened, and then deleted them. They didn't understand. Not yet. Kian had become increasingly withdrawn, not out of isolation but immersion. He'd found something beneath the second structure they unearthed, a network of crystalline threads stretching miles beneath the crust. They weren't wires. They were veins. It's not just alive, he said. It's aware. The whole planet is a sentient biosystem. We're inside a mind. That mind was watching them. On day 106, a second arch formed, identical to the first but positioned near the western ridge. This one didn't shimmer. It pulsed, not like a beacon, but like a heartbeat. Reyes and Kian approached together, this time with no hesitation. Crossing through was different now. The shift was smoother, the veil thinner. They were expected. Inside was not the structure they'd seen before. It was a chamber, tall, iridescent, humming with life, and within it stood forms. Not humanoid, not even physical in a way Earth science would accept. They were impressions, outlines, swirls of color held in shape by invisible fields. Kian took a step forward, entranced. They're echoes, he breathed. Sentience bound in pattern. Not bodies. Memory. The entities didn't speak. They shared. A flood of sensation hit Reyes like a wave. Grief, joy, anticipation. Images of civilizations long gone, of mistakes made and worlds lost. They were caretakers, these beings. Shepherds of life. Arkaia-9 was their final effort. A sanctuary, yes, but also a trial, and humanity had not been the first to walk its soil. The entities revealed fragments of others, races who arrived, took, burned, left, failure after failure. Until now, you listened, the present said again. You stayed. You adapted. Reyes saw her team in that moment, not as explorers, but as a possible answer to a cosmic question. Can you learn? The chamber dimmed, and from its floor rose a seed. Not plant, not metal, but something between. Reyes took it into her palm. It pulsed faintly, mirroring her own heartbeat. This is the contract, Kian said quietly. When they returned, the colony gathered. No one spoke. Reyes opened her hand, revealing the seed. This isn't about surviving here anymore, she said. It never was. This is about becoming something new, something this planet is willing to grow with. Jin stepped forward. You think Earth will allow that? Reyes shook her head. Earth doesn't get to decide. That night, under the twin moons, they planted the seed in the center of the camp. The ground accepted it with glow, roots unfurling silently, gently, as if the planet was welcoming an old friend home. Over the following days, something incredible began to happen. The air shifted subtly, cleaner, lighter. The wildlife that once circled at a distance now wandered closer, unafraid. Patterns appeared in the glass trees, reflections of the colony's movement, its breath. They were in sync now, not colonists, not intruders, inhabitants. Earth's final ultimatum came on day 120. A ship was already en route. Extraction was non-negotiable. Reyes watched the message in silence, then turned it off. Let them come, she said. When the extraction vessel broke through the atmosphere, it circled 3 times before making contact. A team of 6 disembarked, clad in regulation suits and surrounded by drones. Their leader was tall, cold-eyed, and carried a tablet like a weapon. You've exceeded mission parameters. You're in violation of over 30 directives, he said. We're here to take you home. Kian stepped forward. This is home. The official didn't flinch. "You're all coming back, or you'll be marked compromised and listed MIA. Then the ground beneath him pulsed. Softly but firmly, the glass trees shivered. The arch behind the colony lit up like dawn. Rhea stepped between her people and the extraction team. "This planet has judged us," she said, "and we choose to stay. You can try to take us, but it won't let you." The official opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. His drone buzzed once, lost control, and fell to the ground, fried from the inside. The others followed, tumbling like toys. The air thickened. Something in the wind whispered enough. The extraction team left within the hour. The seed grew quickly. Not a tree, not a tower, something else entirely. A place of memory. A beacon, perhaps. One that pulsed with both Earth's past and Arkaia's promise. Veen named it the threshold. Rhea stood beneath its shade one evening, hand resting against its surface. The colony thrived behind her, children's laughter echoing from the new dome, crops bending with bounty, the air alive with light. "We came to survive," she said to Kian beside her. "But we stayed to be worthy." He smiled. "Do you think we are?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The planet already had.